2015 FIM International 6 Days of Enduro brings the riders to Slovakia for the first time since 2005. The 90th edition of the longest-running Enduro Championship sees 31 nations battling for the ultimate team prizes, with 3 categories to be decided. The riders take on 6 daily special tests and over 1,000 kilometers of running to test man and machine. Very different conditions to the 2014 6 days. Riders from 5 continents are ready to chase global bragging rights in the world's most grueling multi-day contest. But the form book is expected to read similarly at the start of the latest edition. Former winners Pierre-Alexandre Renet and Christophe Nambertin are missing from the French team in 2015, but they remain the favourites to take a 4th consecutive crown.
It's difficult to get the title, even when we have the fastest rider in the French team. But this year, every year, I mean, the other countries are getting stronger also. And this year it's same. We have Australia with really good riders, America again, also Spain. And after also we never know which country else can make a surprise, you know. So we'll be like 4-5 teams to fight for the win. So it will be interesting to follow.
Spain arrive with a new look lineup of their own without injured star Ivan Cervantes.
We are glad to be here because we think we have a good team. Maybe we don't have the top riders, but like a group I think is very consistent. So I think we could have good level like a team, and we will be fighting in the top classes, I think, with the top group.
...2014 runners-up, the USA, are still chasing their first crown in the 6 days of Enduro. Their most experienced riders will expect them to be among the favourites.
But you never know here. You know, there's always new riders coming up every year, and you know the rivals I think will be France and Australia. You know, they've all got good riders too, and they ride the same train a lot. So, you know, like I said, I think we just come out strong the first 3 days and then regroup and see what we got to do after that.
Other contenders will include Great Britain, for whom 2005 scratch winner David Knight makes a return alongside World Championship regular Jamie McCanny. After mechanical and injury retirements in 2014, Australia are also keen to get back on the podium in the World Trophy. In the Junior Trophy, reigning champions the USA track 2 members of their 2014 title-winning quartet in defence of the crown.
Everybody here is pumped on the terrain. It's very similar to America with the hills and the dirt. Argentina was nothing like we had ever seen. So to do as well as we did, we were definitely happy with that. But this year, I think everybody's planning on a gold medal. From the Junior Trophy team to the World Trophy team.
France have won 3 of the last 4 titles, with a regular turnover to the senior side as trophy winners. Led by World Youth regular Mikael Persson, Sweden will also be looking for a podium. In the Women's Trophy, reigning champions Australia are the clear favourites after their dominant performance last year.
You know, the girls are getting stronger every year from every country, so we will definitely be fighting to stay in front, but anything's possible. And yeah, the girls are all great. We seem to get along with all of them fairly well, so yeah, we'll see what happens and see what the 6 days in Slovakia holds for us.
France have won 5 of the 8 Women's Trophy competitions held since 2007, so their return to the series will be a boost to the competitiveness of the top positions. The USA are also former winners. Reigning champions France, the USA and Australia returned their perpetual trophies to the organisers, ready for the 2015 competition. This year, 44 Slovakian representatives joined the international field for a total of almost 500 competitors. On any normal week, these wide tarmac streets would be filled with shoppers, but with the FIM 6 Days of Enduro rolling into town, they're reserved for 1,500 competitors and many more spectators. The riders will head up into the mountains for the 3 special tests, each to be covered twice per day.
She's only 19 years old, je mladý Ukrajin, ktorá štartovala na štartovej už 3-krát na majstrovstvách sveta.
A natural wooded route for the opening 2 stages, with rocks and dirt characterising the course. In 2012, Women's Trophy champions France returned with 2 of their 3 title winners for the 2015 edition, but were restricted to a distant second place on day 1. Former gold medalists Blandine Dufresne and Audrey Rousseau were their top performers. The French side's return was expected to be the main story of the latest edition of the Women's Trophy, but instead the 3 2014 title winners from Australia were untroubled on day 1 as the 2015 competition got underway. Tyler Jones and Gemma Wilson helped their team to a lead of over 7 minutes.
Yeah, I had a good day, had no major mistakes and stayed upright in all the tests, so I'm happy with that. Our team had a good day as well. Jess and Gemma both rode really well, so hopefully we can just keep it up and continue tomorrow.
After just 1 day, Australia's trio looked comfortably the fastest, locking out the top positions individually and opening a sizable margin to the minor positions. A separate race for 3rd. Broken collarbone victim earlier this year, Stuart Baylor aggravated his injury on day 1, leaving himself with a tough week ahead for the USA. 2014 Junior Trophy winners France sat narrowly ahead of the Americans after day 1, but over 4 minutes from top spot. Youth Cup leader Mikael Persson was outshone by teammate Jasper Borgersen for the Swedish team as they held an isolated 2nd place over 3 minutes behind the lead. Australia were able to pull out an advantage thanks to the stunning efforts of Ty Simmons and Daniel Sanders. Sanders, outright fastest in E3, was the only junior rider to finish stage 1 in under 45 minutes.
It was rough, but no, the track and the trail was so much fun. Very much better than last year's 6 days. So really enjoying it, and I think the junior team was really strong today. So hopefully we are up there on the podium.
Defending champions, the USA sit only 4th and almost 5 minutes behind Australia, fast starters as they were in 2014. Jonathan Manzi was the fastest day 1 representative for Italy in the World Trophy as his team dropped 4 minutes back from the lead pace. The Italians, last winners back in 2007, posted a solid performance with no one rider clear of his fellow countrymen. Spain finished the day almost 2 minutes clear of Italy, but struggled to hang on to the back of the lead 3 nations. Riding without the injured Ivan Cervantes, Spain's early star was Lorenzo Santolino, who finished the day a top 10 performer in E1. France were hit by a time penalty for their star Mattia Bellino. The current E3 World Championship leader could only manage 10th in class after receiving a 1-minute penalty for setting off early on the start ramp. But his teammates rallied to 3rd. Marc Bourgeois, their fastest representative, with a top 3 finish in E3. Four of Australia's 5 representatives finished the day within a minute of the stage's fastest time as the men from Down Under packed in with the leaders in pursuit of a first ever World Trophy. Daniel Milner had a particularly strong day, topping the timesheets in 2 of the tests, and Lachlan Stanford finished fastest in E3. Standout performances from Ryan Sykes and Caleb Russell helped the USA to amass a significant day 1 lead. Russell finished less than 2 seconds ahead of his fellow countrymen to top the scratch times, with Sykes topping the timesheets in E2. A team advantage of over 1 minute at the end of the first day was an impressive return.
You know, I'm looking good, and Ryan's riding well, my teammate, and you think all my teammates are doing pretty good. So we're done with day one, so we just look forward and just try to keep having days like today.
Runners-up in 2014, Team USA made a strong start, with their representatives topping the timesheets in 4 of the first 6 special tests. Alongside team and individual competitions, a manufacturer's team award is closely followed. The KTM factory team held the lead after stage 1, ahead of Husqvarna.
Na Husqvarna. So she's going to start in this minute 2:25. And from Sweden, Henrik Lindholm, 2:31.
A second run of 275 kilometres for the riders on day 2, in an exact repeat of the stage 1 course. Sanna Karkinen was the 3rd fastest woman on day 2, as Finland narrowed the gap to Sweden from 4th position to just 6 seconds. Sweden held on to the fringes of the podium with consistent performances from Emily Karlsson and Jessica Johnson, but their race is clearly now over 3rd as they dropped 11 minutes from the top 2. Each of the French competitors were at least a minute down on the slowest Australian as they slipped 7 minutes further back and into a 15-minute deficit. There was no touching Australia again as they consolidated their lead on day 2.
Today was a lot harder than yesterday, just the tracks were a lot rougher, but I felt good on the bike and just stayed upright in all the tests, so I was happy with that and came away with another win, so I'm stoked.
Finland got the better of Sweden on day 2 to provide the only shift in the standings. Over half an hour separated 1st from 5th after less than 4 hours of timed competition, and the only tussle, seemingly, was over 3rd. France were only 5th fastest on day 2 in the junior trophy, but maintained their 3rd position overall, courtesy of their day 1 advantage. The results meant the French slipping further back from the lead 2 teams and into the clutches of the USA and Italy behind. Sweden opened their gap to the French by over 2 minutes. Mikael Persson, their fastest representative, still slower than 2 of Australia's junior stars. Outright fastest in E3, Daniel Sanders moved almost a minute clear at the top of the junior times and helped his team to edge their advantage to over 6 minutes.
Yeah, I had a good, solid, consistent run all day. Not many mistakes. I didn't have to pass people in tests, so I got to no dust, and it was a clean run through all the tests, and I put down some fast times in the wet and in the morning. I do like the wet, so yeah, it did help.
A good day for Finland, with the 3rd fastest time on the stage, moving them into 7th overall. Italy's times helped them into the top 5 at the expense of Great Britain, for whom Josh Gotts was eliminated from the contest. A 16-minute penalty for delay to Eero Remes ruined his week on an individual note and also contributed towards Finland slipping 10 minutes further back from the lead in 8th. Great Britain were dealt an early blow with the day 1 injury to Joe Wooten, but Jamie McCanny continued to shine as he remained 2nd in E1. Davide Ganurni topped Italy's timesheets to continue an impressive Enduro debut. The whole Italian team again separated by just over a minute, but with no standout rider to match the frontrunners as they went 7 minutes in arrears. Jaume Betriu was the star of Spain's Day 2 performance, 30 seconds faster than fellow countryman Lorenzo Santolino and a top 5 runner in E2. Spain conceded further ground to the podium runners from 4th. France conceding 30 seconds to the leaders as well, remained third after stage 2, 2 minutes behind first place. Despite having the top performer in both E1 and E2 with Caleb Russell and Ryan Sipes, the USA dropped out of first position with a lack of backup from the team's remaining members. From over a minute ahead, the USA slipped 8 seconds behind first place, but still in touch with the leaders. A brilliant performance from Australia saw them swallow up the USA lead and establish themselves in front with an 8-second buffer. With 5 Australian representatives in the top 15 of the day's times, including Day 2 winner Daniel Milner, Australia were over a minute faster than their nearest rivals on the stage.
Today everything went well, bike went well, even our team. Our team is, we're getting stronger and stronger as the days are getting on. So, happy with my result today and happy with the team result also.
Italy finished 4th and almost a minute faster than Spain as a battle developed for 4th overall. A brilliant turnaround for Australia put them into 1st, with France dropping 2 minutes back. The 6 days of Enduro is a crucial time for manufacturers, not only in competition for the Manufacturers Award, but also for the technological benefits for their production models.
Very important for us to be present at the 6 days. It's a long race, so we test the bikes in hard conditions. Any kind of the bike, any parts are tested. It's for any manufacturer a good test bench for the production.
Very hard for the engine, of course, the suspension, everything suffers a lot depending on the track condition. If there's a lot of dust, the engine has to be checked very carefully. If there is a lot of mud, the suspension and everything needs to be checked very often during the race, and of course the bikes are suffering.
Our racing bikes are really close to production bikes. We are focused on top-level bikes, performance bikes, so racing bikes are close to production bikes.
All the feedback we get from riders, of course, will go into our research department to try to make it better. KTM is here with one truck. We are able to service 50 riders, so we are servicing international riders. Each rider who is interested can book our service, and we are doing the best to satisfy them and to give them a good experience to take home. We are here with 10 mechanics in the paddock and about 15 to 20 persons outside on the service station to fuel, give them food and help them as good as they can.
We organize to have spare parts for our riders. We are official riders in French team or Spanish team, and importer riders in other countries like Australia or UK. It's logistic. We have the truck here, we have the van, all the minders bike. So, but it's important to participate in this race.
The 2015 6 days of Enduro was still bathed in sunshine, with ideal conditions for racing and spectating, temperatures still relatively low and blue skies prevailing in Kosice. Effectively a new course for the riders on day 3, as the opening stage was reversed for the riders to tackle the rough mountainous terrain for a third time. Emily Karlsson improved again for Sweden to boost their chances of third position in the Women's Trophy, taking the 5th fastest time on the day as the Swedes re-established their advantage over Scandinavian rivals Finland. France dropped their biggest deficit of the week on stage 2, conceding 12 further minutes to Australia and ending the day 27 minutes back from the leaders, who locked out the top 3 places for a third time. Australia had gained a seemingly insurmountable advantage even as early as the week's halfway mark.
Such an awkward spot.
Fastest on each of the opening days, Tyler Jones maintained a comfortable individual lead, and Australia seemed certain to make it back-to-back wins.
Today was really good. It was the whole course backwards, so it was a little bit tough and fairly bumpy on the arms and the poor old body. But I think the Team Australia women held up a strong race all day, and hopefully we come through with the goods in the afternoon.
The USA beat Finland's times for the first time to close slightly on 4th, while the Finns dropped back from Sweden in the race for 3rd. The top 2 positions already looked decided. Second fastest on day 3, the USA gained 10 seconds on second place, but dropped further from the defence of the junior trophy. Grant Baylor put in an excellent ride to finish just 20 seconds from the fastest runner. Second place Sweden conceded further ground to Australia, with their front-runner Mikael Persson still unable to beat either Simmons or Sanders at the halfway mark. The Australian quartet continued to open their advantage at a rate of 2 minutes per day, Daniel Sanders maintaining his lead in the individual E3 classification.
It was really rough today, and but got through today again, so day 3 ticked off and done. Junior team was strong again, I think, and yeah, the senior and girls, like, coming off day 2, I think we're all winning. So there was the Aussie team's going really strong, and can't thank all the supporters enough for helping out and getting us up top.
Australia and Sweden continued to pull away from the pack, but behind the podium, 4 teams were separated by just over a minute on stage 3. Positions 3 to 7 separated by just 5 minutes overall. A dramatic day of competition shook up the World Trophy. No less than 8 riders from the top 6 teams found themselves disqualified for missing a checkpoint. With Marc Bourgeois, Anthony Boissière and Jeremy Joly all eliminated, France were down to just 3 riders and effectively out of the competition at the back of the pack. Great Britain, already 1 rider down through injury, lost their star David Knight. But Jamie McCanny took advantage of the day's dramatic events to move top in E1, and his chase for individual glory continued. With Lorenzo Santolino and Cristobal Guerrero out for Spain as well, 4 of the top 5 nations after day 2 slipped to the bottom 5 positions after day 3. Ryan Sipes topped the timesheets on the 3rd day to make himself the new individual leader, but the USA's progress was halted by the day's dramatic events. Day 1 winner Caleb Russell retired on stage 3 with knee injuries, and with the disqualification of Taylor Robert factored in, the USA was stuck down in 20th. Finland were the big winners after the raft of disqualifications, moving from 8th to a provisional 3rd position, 24 minutes back from the leaders, but over 4 minutes up on their nearest podium challengers, Germany. Italy were the only top 5 team to gain positions after the 8 disqualifications were confirmed. Despite losing Manuel Moni, they moved 2nd. All but one of the Italians was slower than the weakest Australian, Oscar Belletti the fastest for the 2nd place team. Australia were now nursing a 12-minute advantage. Daniel Milner took the individual lead in E2, and Matthew Phillips moved second fastest for the favourites. The disqualification of key riders dropped 4 teams out of contention. With 24 minutes now separating the top 3 overall, the main battle to be resolved was for third, with Finland now leading Germany and the Czech Republic. Each of the 3 classes seem to have settled down at the halfway mark in the 2015 6 Days of Enduro. An entirely new route for day 4 was a relief to the riders, leaving the bumps in favour of more mountainous terrain on a new stage. Sweden consolidated third position on day 4 in the Women's Trophy as their times topped rivals Finland for a third time in 3 stages. France opened their gap to 17 minutes, their best stage since day 1, nonetheless leaving them 39 minutes from the leaders. The slowest Australian was still 4 minutes up on the quickest member of the French team in second. Tyler Jones leading teammates Gemma Wilson and Jessica Gardner to a top 3 lockout individually.
Day 4 was pretty good. Trails were a little bit easier today, new trails, not as rough. But the tests were really nice. Us girls, I think, 1, 2, 3 again today, Aussie girls. So yeah, good day.
The USA finished 4th on the day to close in on Finland overall, but elsewhere the gaps between the teams extended. After losing a block of time on the opening 2 stages, the USA continued to maintain the gap to Sweden with strong performances from Grant and Stuart Baylor on day 4. Already 4 minutes up, the Swedes seemed comfortably able to manage the gap, but they remained unable to make any impact on top spots and dropped 11 minutes in arrears with 2 days remaining. Australia consistently opened 2 to 3 minutes on their lead over the opening days. Daniel Sanders continuing to dominate the junior trophy individually.
Yeah, today was good. We had 2 new tests. I struggled really hard on the first 2. There was no line in the hills, so it was real off camber and hard to get traction and pull up the hills with good corner speed. So. Yeah, but the second time through, I think I went really good. I pulled some good times today. Second in the last test, and I think a 4th in one of the other tests. So I was happy with my riding today.
Italy headed France's times on day 4 to challenge for 4th overall. The gap remaining static between 2nd and 3rd, ahead with Australia well clear up front. An early stage 4 retirement for Tad Duval further compounded the USA's disappointment, and their tactics turned to focusing on individual glory with Ryan Sipes. Edward Hubner was the fastest German representative, finishing 3rd fastest in E1 on the day, but his team dropped 6 minutes further back from the podium runners. Finland ended day 4 in 3rd, Eero Remers fastest in E1, but the next fastest Finn was over a minute slower. Both Antti Helston and Mika Tamminen only just inside the top 10 in class. Oscar Belletti remained in the top 5 of E3 as Italy put another 2 minutes on their lead to Finland in second position. Australia could afford to relax their pace on day 4 with a 15-minute advantage and needing only to bring their 6 riders home for team victory. Daniel Milner dropped back from the lead in E2, but nonetheless took the 3rd fastest time in class on stage 4.
Can still improve before the end of the week, so that's important. And you know, the rest of the guys were really fast today, so yeah, it just wasn't my day, and that's part of the job. So yeah, we'll try and bounce back tomorrow with a bit of rain and attack.
Australia managed their advantage over Italy, finishing the day over 2 minutes clear and establishing a 15-minute lead. 40 minutes separated the top 4 after day 4. The 3 classes in 2015, Australia are the team to beat, and that's as much about the sporting culture as it is about the riders themselves.
So Enduro is our #1 discipline in Australia. It's actually better than motocross, better than any other discipline in Australia. So we have a lot of Enduro in Australia, and we do a lot of things like we have an Australian 4-day, which is the same rules as a 6-day, but only over 4 days. And we also have a national series, which is over 12 rounds as well, doing off-road. So it gets a lot of people involved. Our riders back home obviously do a similar sort of a series, and we have a 4-day back home, and we select these riders based on their performance back home. We've got guys like Matty Phillips, who rides over in Europe as well. We've got Daniel Milner, who's currently over in the US. So yeah, those guys are getting some extra experience over there. But back home, all our riders ride against each other. So from our juniors, our women's, our seniors, all riding together, and they push each other really hard. It's been fantastic. Like obviously the junior team, they're young, they want to do really well, and they get inspired by the senior teams. They see the Matt Phillipses and Daniel Milners going overseas, and they want this, so they try really, really hard back home to do this. You can't go past them, Jess, who does a lot of stuff in Europe, Gemma, who's doing a lot of stuff in Europe, Taylor Jones, who's also now looking at maybe branching out overseas to do some stuff in America, but they've just been riding for so long, and they ride with our guys at that level, so they're used to doing that sort of stuff. We don't have a separate class for the women, we put them in with the men, so they know how to ride, and they ride really tough. For us to get up and then get overseas costs a lot of money for the riders. They can spend $4,000 or $5,000 easily just for a weekend of riding overseas. Well, if they've got to do that 6 times a year, all of a sudden they've got to find themselves $30,000 for the year. Well, our riders work just normally like you and I do, so it's hard for them to spend their whole year's wages just on going and doing 6 races. So it's hard for them to branch out overseas without getting some sort of sponsorship or help from some of the manufacturers, which is obviously, the girls like Sherco have helped out Jess, Gemma with Yamaha, and now Taylor on Yamaha, and they're helping them get overseas, which is great to see.
With only 1 full day of tests remaining, the pressure was on for recovering teams to make dramatic gains in the standings.
Next lap they take a time.
A second day on the same course presented the riders with a different challenge. Overnight rain making conditions significantly different on day 5. Sweden opened another 30 seconds over Finland in the women's trophy to bring themselves within touching distance of 3rd position as only the final cross test remains. The field continued to extend throughout, with France pulling clear in second but dropping back from the leaders. Blandine Dufresne was sixth fastest on the day, but maintained fifth overall individually. Only 2 retirements could cost Australia the title, and somewhat understandably their pace seemed to drop off, with Jessica Gardner beaten by a non-Australian for the first time all week.
Today was pretty good. The rain made it a lot slipperier this morning on the trails and on the test, and they got rid of one because it was in pretty poor condition. But as the day went on, it got a lot grippier, and the tracks were actually pretty fun at the end of the day.
An outstanding individual performance from Sanna Kirkkonen kept Finland in touch with Sweden on the day. But even the closest battles sees the team in third and fourth, separated by over 7 minutes. A brilliant day for Italy saw them move from 5th to 3rd in the Junior World Trophy at the expense of the USA. A retirement for Nick Davis, ruling the Americans out of the action. Italy also moved past France, who dropped to 4th. Sweden remained in 2nd. Their big hitter Mikael Persson 2 minutes off the Australian pace setters as they dropped over 2 minutes further back. 13 minutes up with only the final test remaining. Victory now seemed inevitable for the youngsters from Down Under. Daniel Sanders was restricted to 2nd for the first time in E3, but maintained the class lead for the Australians, who extended their lead at the top of the Junior Trophy.
We had a lot of rain last night and made the track nice and technical for the boys, so obviously it helped. I felt good in the wet this morning. I just stuck to the main line and it was dry underneath, so I found some traction. Had a big crash in the last test though, so it might have affected my overall a little bit, but you know, I'm healthy still and no injuries, so I'm happy with that. And the bike's still going strong with the KTM 300, so I'm having some fun out there, and I'm looking forward to the final moto tomorrow to, you know, have some fun with the boys, and you know, we've got to get through to tomorrow and hopefully yeah, finish strong and bring home the trophies.
The battle for 3rd was the focus in the Junior Trophy on day 5. Italy the 3rd fastest team ahead of Great Britain. Both teams gaining on France, who dropped back to 4th overall. A 3-way tussle for the podium. In a dramatic twist to the World Trophy, a decision from the FIM's International Disciplinary Court saw the provisional reinstatement of the 8 riders who had been disqualified on day 3 of the competition. With several key riders reintegrated into the lineup, Finland dropped to 6th position. Eero Remes continued to lead for the Finns, topping the timesheets in E1 on day 5. Great Britain moved back into 5th with David Knight in the running once again. Knight was the fastest of the British representatives for the 2nd consecutive day, although Jamie McCanny maintained the lead in E1. Oscar Valetti recorded the E3 win on day 5 to top the Italian timesheets as their early week rivals Spain were back on the scoreboard and the race resumed for 3rd. Italy were actually 3rd fastest on the day, Spain conceding over 2 minutes to their podium contenders. Cristobal Guerrero was the top performer of the Iberian 6 as they continue to drop back from the lead 2 teams in 3rd. Australia dropped to 2nd position despite an outstanding performance from Daniel Milner. Milner 2nd fastest in E2 to top his country's times, but France gained over 2 minutes to lead. Loic Larieux scored an individual and symbolic victory over Daniel Milner in E2 as the tide turned in favour of France. With Larieux and Anthony Boissière both running top 3 in class, the reinvigorated reigning champions took the lead for the first time with just 1 day remaining.
this morning the FIM say to us, okay, you are in the race, and all the 6 riders push really hard for win again today and try to win again the 6 days.
Italy did well to finish an impressive second fastest on day 5, pulling clear of Great Britain, but running out of time to make back the remaining deficit for a top 3 place. Typical motocross course, even the most experienced MX riders would scarcely recognise a landscape dotted with trees and scarred by rough terrain.
Enduro,
The 6th and final day of timed competition consisted solely of the cross test, with minimal opportunities for teams to recover ground lost earlier in the week. The 14 remaining women riders lined up for their final test and the last opportunity to restrict Australia's unstoppable run to victory. Finland's Sanna Kirkkonen took the whole shot, but was quickly overhauled at the first turn by Tyler Jones and Jessica Gardner, the Australian duo who would go on to open a gap of over a minute at the front. Gardner was the initial leader, but Tyler Jones resumed her role as the front-running female on her way to overall victory. With first and second on the day, the top 3 places locked out overall, the Australians fell less than 5 minutes short of a stunning 1-hour victory margin. Gemma Wilson was restricted to 6th on the final test, 5 riders from 4 different nations ahead of her, but there was no matching Jones or Gardner, a minute clear at the close of the race. Finland held on for 4th overall despite the standout day 6 performance of Rachel Guttish. Catching Australia was already an impossible task for runners-up France. Jamie McCanny held a substantial 1-minute individual advantage over Anthony Boissier and Cristobal Guerrero in E1, but all eyes were on the French representatives in their bid to hold the lead and take a second consecutive World Trophy. With just over 10 seconds eventually separating the top 5 in this end-of-week sprint, Josep Garcia will have been grateful to find the early lead ahead of Joshua Green of Australia, who slipped back. Jamie McCanny moved into 2nd, but the focus in terms of World Trophy riders was on France, who provided 2 front-running finishers, both within a minute of the race victory. Boissier was never likely to make up enough ground to take the overall E1 win, and McCanny's performance guaranteed top spots in the class to also aid Great Britain's time. Josh Green, meanwhile, had done his bit to get the better of the French representatives, but the Australians would need a series of even more spectacular finishes in the other 2 categories. Jamie McCanny finished 2nd to take the E1 victory. Anthony Boissier and Cristobal Guerrero just behind overall. E2 was the closest of the 3 groups coming into the final day of competition, but a 30-second advantage looked set to be enough for Ryan Sipes on an individual level. 6 Australian representatives in class guaranteed that the race would be crucial in terms of both the World and Junior trophies. 4 of the Australians broke quickly into a pack together, chasing early leader Sipes. Daniel Milner led the Australian charge, putting pressure on Sipes, but no errors came from the front runner. Ty Simmons moved up to 4th at the expense of Taylor Roberts and behind fellow countryman Bo Ralston. Down in 9th, Loic Larieux finished behind 3 Australians, but within 30 seconds of the trio and strong enough to ensure a significant portion of France's lead remained intact. The USA have had a week to forget, with 2 retirements leaving them 2nd to last, but Sipes' week-long performances gave them something to cheer. Ryan Sipes becomes the first American in the 90-year history of the ISDE to claim the individual overall win after his week-closing efforts in E2. With 3 of their trophy riders in E3, there were plenty of cross fingers for a smooth race in the France camp. The Italian representatives took the best starts, Oscar Belletti trailing his fellow countrymen Davide Canoni and Manuel Moni. Belletti and Bellino have been involved in an individual scrap for second in class, first of the trophy runners in E3. And it was Bellino who held sway in that fight as he moved into third in the race. Australia's Daniel Sanders finished 4th, enough to take first in class and 4th overall individually, but not enough to make it a 6th consecutive day as the fastest junior trophy rider. That honour went to Ty Simmons as the duo pushed their teams towards victory. But with top E3 performer Sanders competing at junior level, Australia looked to Lachlan Stamford, who finished 3 places behind Bellino of France. Canoni took the victory by 18 seconds over Moni, but the Spaniards performed generally better on the test and held on to 3rd overall.
Tom Mason, Daniel Sanders a Ty Simmons.
Daniel Sanders took the overall E3 win ahead of Mattia Bellino, Oscar Belletti 3rd in class despite finishing only 8th in the final test. With the winners confirmed, 2 different nations could celebrate victory in 3 different classes.
Počúvajte, našiel sa vodický preukaz. Jan Kašpárek, máte tu vodický preukaz.
Large margins between the teams by the end of the week. The rankings were set up clearly by the end of the opening stage in the Women's Trophy.
Yeah, we're really happy with getting our 3 in a row this year. We had a good run all week and had no dramas, so we're stoked with getting the championship back.
4 of the top 5 teams had a full complement of 3 finishers, and in a contest decided by outright speed, Australia clearly have the form team as their trio win in a 2nd year in succession. The 3-way battle for 3rd in the junior trophy remained static on the final day. Australia comfortable winners and Sweden an isolated 2nd.
Yeah, the Australian junior team really performed well this week. We had 3 new riders that never done a 6-day. So, yeah, they had an absolutely, sensational race. So, and myself, I performed well and rode really well.
Australia took the junior trophy for the first time in their history, and it clearly won't be long before Ty Simmons and Daniel Sanders move into the senior team.
Daniel Sanders and Ty Simmons.
To give the medals of Jean-Brian.
A close race for first in the World Trophy, but Australia had too much work to do on the final day of the week. Spain held comfortably on from Italy for 3rd.
Thank you. Yeah, we are all really happy about this result because, as everybody knows, it was a really tough race and with a lot of happening, And at the end, we still win. The Australians were fast. America also, Spain also. It was really not easy, but with my teammates, we did the job and we're on the top of the step, and that's the most grateful we could get from that, and we are really happy about it.
A 4th World Trophy victory in succession for France, who took a final winning margin of just over a minute from one-time leaders Australia. The 6 days of Enduro now moves on to Spain for 2016, where 2 different nations will defend their 3 hard-earned titles. put an Alex